Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. This week on the homestead, we have been super busy and I have a ton of footage, but I haven't been able to put it all together yet. So I figured I would come to you guys with a pregnancy, labor plan, labor and delivery plan, motherhood, just Q&A. I've never done anything like this before, and I figured now would be a great time. This is actually the night before I'm posting this video, so I feel like it's a perfect opportunity to give you a bump update. The bump is looking very big. I hear geese. And yeah, I asked my friends on Instagram to send in some questions. I really appreciate everyone who sent in their questions. I am having what I'm describing as a low intervention pregnancy so far. With my first baby, I went to a midwife practice and I basically just did everything they asked me to. And I found out through that experience that they ask you to do a lot of unnecessary testing and screenings. It ended up kind of stressing me out and bringing me a lot of anxiety. For instance, every single time I went to that office, they would take my blood pressure and my blood pressure would be high. Whereas when I took my blood pressure at home or at a grocery store, it was never high. So to me, something like that says that I obviously don't feel super comfortable in medical settings. And I'm pretty sure I have what people call white coat syndrome. This time around, I am opting for low intervention care. In our new city here, there's basically one singular hospital that you can deliver at. The care providers associated with that hospital is an obstetrics practice. So I am seeing an OBGYN for my prenatal care, but I am definitely doing the least amount of appointments. I'm opting out of certain things and I'm opting into other things. I think in general, obstetric care versus midwife care differs in that midwifery seems to be a little bit more friendly to the physiological birthing process, which I'm definitely a fan of. And they seem to be more open and natural-minded. With my first birth, I didn't totally experience the most natural-minded midwives, but now that I am experiencing obstetric care, I do realize that the midwives are more naturally minded. I guess what I'm saying is they weren't naturally minded enough for me. Okay, so without further ado, I am going to pull up some of these questions, and I might run out of light here, but you can see me fine enough. Okay, the first question I have screenshot here is pregnancy cravings. Do I have any pregnancy cravings this pregnancy? It's interesting, with my first pregnancy, I just vividly remember craving sour anything, like I was licking lemons and eating sour candy all the time. With this pregnancy, I can't really say that I have any particular cravings. Actually, now that I think about it, I'm probably craving more sweets and sugar more this pregnancy than I did with my first. Okay, second question. Does your toddler understand a new baby is coming? And how are you preparing her? So my firstborn is 24 months old. So I would not say that she totally understands the concept to the fullest extent possible. She acknowledges the fact that my belly is getting bigger. She's called me Big Mama a couple times, which was humbling. I've really been trying to be intentional about preparing her for birth, and that entails where the baby is going to come out of and some of the noises that I might be making during labor. So I've really been mimicking some of the sounds that she might hear while I'm in labor, just to get her used to that sensation so that she's not too freaked out when I'm moaning and groaning. Okay, that brings me to another question I see here in my screenshots. What is your plan for labor? So if I learned anything from my first birth, I learned that it's not wise to sprint to the hospital at the first trickle of anything, the first sensation of anything, because I think that's really how I got myself a 3-day labor in the hospital with a certain degree of cascade of interventions. I held my ground pretty well, but with my first birth, I did finally give in to them pushing Pitocin, and I ended up getting an epidural. So these are things that I definitely want to avoid this second time around. My labor plan is to spend as much time laboring at home this second time. That means for me, I have been planning and training to have an unmedicated birth because I know second births can often go quicker than the first. I do feel in my bones that I'm going to be pretty serious about laboring as long as I can at home, which very well means that I may miss the window to get an epidural. So I have been training like I'm going to have an unmedicated birth. I would love to have an unmedicated birth. I would love to go without an epidural. It was my goal the first time, so I would love to try for that again. But I will say, the first time around when I got the epidural, it was a relief that was amazing. So I'm not totally against an epidural, but it is my goal to avoid getting one this second time around. And I see on here a question, any book recommendations on natural birth? So when I say I'm training to go unmedicated, to not have an epidural, I'm doing that through reading books. I will pop the name of the book that I have been reading right here. And I will pop the name of the book that I'm going to read next right here. So this is a book about natural childbirth and how to cope with the sensations of natural childbirth. I get out of breath. And if I remember correctly, this is a book specifically about hypnobirthing and just affirmations that you can tell yourself while you're in labor that can really help you get through it. With my first birth, I think I made it to like 6 centimeters before I got the epidural. So I'm familiar with what contractions feel like and what really helps to get through them. And I will say it's all a mental game. So I think this hypnobirthing book is really going to help me this time around. I see here somebody asked, are you going to consume your placenta? I personally don't have a desire to consume my placenta in pill form or by cooking it on the stove. I understand that in some cultures that's a significant practice, and there are people that say there are benefits to consuming your placenta. I have read that your placenta acts as a sort of filter, filtering out any toxins, environmental toxins, and keeping them from your baby. So in my mind, it sounded like the placenta might be full of things that aren't necessarily good for you, but I've also heard that consuming your placenta is great for postpartum, hormone balancing, milk production. So I'm not totally knocking anyone who consumes their placenta. It's just not for me. Somebody here asked, home birth, doula. So I like having all my options open to me. So that is the main reason why I have sought prenatal care through the hospital medical team, so that I can go to the hospital if I feel like labor is too much for me to handle. If there's an emergency, I have established care with the labor and delivery people at the hospital. But I'm not going to lie, I would absolutely love for this second birth to be a home birth, but I hold that expectation very loosely. As somebody who has gone through this before, I know there's a million things that can change, but if this became a home birth, I will be very happy to share all of those details with you. Somebody here asked, what's your favorite and least favorite part about being pregnant? Wow, so this pregnancy is totally different from my first. I just feel way bigger. Everything feels like it's been stretched out, which it has 2 years ago. So with my first, everything just felt so, I don't know, in hindsight, the baby felt very snug in there. And with this pregnancy, I feel like I'm carrying so much lower and the baby is heavy and I am having the most excruciating round ligament pain, I guess is what it's called. Just so much pain in my pelvis, heaviness in my pelvis. So the discomfort this time around is definitely my least favorite part. But my favorite part about being pregnant is just growing children and multiplying with the person that I love most in the world. I am going to be 33 this year, so I'm not the youngest person ever to get pregnant, and I'm definitely not the oldest, but I don't necessarily have the luxury of a ton of time to have all the children I feel like we want to have. I feel like if I had the luxury of being pregnant in my 20s, we would have like 5, 6, 7 children. But realistically, with our timeline, we are probably looking at more like 3 kids, which is wonderful. But my advice to people is start having children young, which is not advice that I grew up with. Okay, this is a question more about just motherhood in general. Motherhood, I guess, really on a homestead. It says, are you worried about your children around farm animals? So we do have 2 300-pound pigs on our homestead, lots of chickens, a rabbit, dog, cat. So there are definitely risks that come with having your children around farm animals like that, around their manure. There's risks having your children around just a dog. So I'm definitely one of those people who I would never like fully trust my dog alone with my very young child. I'm always very much keeping an eye on my children around all animals, because anything can happen in a split second. Even chickens can sort of fly up. They have very sharp claws. So we definitely keep a very close eye on our kids around farm animals. And as far as like germs go, being on a farm, I am of the mind that it's good for their immune system. My husband is a little bit more of a germaphobe, and that's probably good. He definitely is reminding me all the time to wash our toddler's hands. So I think we balance each other out. And she has very rarely been sick. So far, knock on wood, growing up on a homestead seems to be good for her immune system. And in general, being around animals, having chores at the age of 2, I think all of that is great for young children. So this is a question about the gender of the baby. Why don't you find out the gender before birth? How do you prepare without knowing? So I feel like this is a really interesting question. Not finding out the gender of your baby before they're born is, for me, a practice of restraint. I feel like our modern approach to pregnancy, labor, delivery, all of that is rooted in so much needing to know every single detail, wanting to control every single detail. And the further I get into being pregnant, having pregnancies, I'm realizing that this really is a part of life that you can't control, and you really shouldn't be able to control. So not knowing the gender is just a gentle reminder for me that I'm not fully in control of this entire process. Which brings me to my last question, which is about ultrasounds. So ultrasounds are something that I did a lot of reading about because I wasn't just totally convinced right off the bat that ultrasounds were even safe, necessary. And I have found that in the grand scheme of things, ultrasounds are probably okay. I don't know that you should go getting boutique style 3D ultrasounds just for fun, but that has been one of my favorite parts of this pregnancy. I've gotten 3 ultrasounds so far in this pregnancy. One was to confirm the pregnancy, the second was an anatomy scan, and the last one I had, I was about 30 weeks pregnant, and it was just so relieving to see that the baby had gone into a head down position. So I think I will allow one more ultrasound this pregnancy, and that's really in my mind just to make sure that the baby is engaged and in a good head down position. Oh, I just realized that it probably sounded super vague when I mentioned there were certain screenings that I'm opting out of. Nobody asked about gestational diabetes in the question box, but I did want to say that I opted out of the 1-hour glucose screening. Yes? What? You hungry? Okay. I I opted out of the 1 hour glucose screening in the office, and instead I asked to be prescribed a continuous glucose monitor. I am a lot like my brother. We love biometrics, so wearing this continuous glucose monitor on my arm gave me such a good idea about what happens to my blood sugar throughout the day when I'm eating normally. So I would definitely recommend talking to your doctor, if you choose to have a doctor during pregnancy, about prescribing you a continuous glucose monitor, because I believe it just offers such a more robust look into what your blood sugar is doing while you're pregnant. I'm not sure how true this is, but I have heard that just being pregnant makes you a little bit more susceptible to diabetes. Having a continuous glucose monitor was awesome. Luckily, I don't have gestational diabetes, but like I said, seeing in real time how my blood sugar was being affected by things I eat every day was very eye-opening. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and thank you everyone for sending in your questions. I will see you on the next one. Bye.